Hello, Novita students. Today we are going to be learning about equivalent expressions. Be ready to learn about different properties that we can use to solve equivalent expressions. The three main properties that we will be learning about today are the subtraction property of equality, the division property of equality, and the distributive property. We will be learning about these because they will help us solve equivalent expressions. The first property we will be learning about is the subtractive property of equality. What is the subtractive property of equality?
The subtractive property of equality is if we subtract from one side of an equation, we also must subtract from the other side of the equation to keep the equation the same.
When using the subtractive property, the goal is to get the variable by itself in the problem. X is the variable in this problem.
In this problem, to get x by itself, we want to subtract 25 from both sides. Now that we have subtracted 25 from both sides, we'll bring the x down, and now we know that x equals 100.
When we solved this problem, we subtracted 25 from each side of the equal sign because we needed to isolate x all by itself. We now know that this problem is balanced because the variable is on one side of the equal sign without sharing it with a number that is standing alone, like 25. Now that we have learned about the subtractive property of equality, we are going to take a look at a story problem that uses this method. Before bed, Joseph tells his dog that he loves him 17 times. If he says this 17 more nights, he will have said it 100 times. How many nights has he said it already? Using this expression, work with a partner and solve the problem.
We provided this expression for you so you know that n represents the number of nights that he said it already. Now that we've dribbled with our learning, we're going to take a time out. Feel free to turn to your partner or teacher to ask any questions that you might have. You can also take this time to share with your partner about your thinking on this problem.
Great job working with your partner. I know sometimes working on problems can be a little bit difficult, so we're going to explain to you how we solve this problem. The expression we used for the story problem was n plus 17 equals 100. To get n by itself, we're going to subtract 17 from both sides. After we do this, we get n equals 83. We know that 83 is our answer because we subtracted 17 from 100. This got n by itself and gave us the answer. Now that we've learned and worked with story problems using the subtractive property of equality, we're going to move on to the division property of equality. What is division property of equality?
The division property is if you divide both sides of an equation by the same non-zero number, the sides will remain equal.
The division property of equality is very similar to the subtractive property. It is similar in that we are trying to get the variable by itself, and we will do that by dividing from both sides.
In this problem, we have a number attached to the variable, so to get rid of that, we need to divide by 3 on both sides. And now we have the x by itself, so x will equal -4. And when we divide by a positive and a negative number, we always get a negative for our answer.
Now that we have learned how to solve equivalent expressions using the division property, we're going to take a look at a story problem that will use this property. Emma's dog is 4 times as old as she is. If her dog is 10, how old is Emma?
Stop! Now it's your turn to solve the problem. If you have any questions, you can turn to your partner or teacher.
Great job working and collaborating with your partner. The expression we used for this problem was 4x equals 10. Now we're going to walk through with you how to solve this problem. To solve this expression, we first need to get x by itself. How we do that will be divide 4x by 4 and 10 by 4. We are dividing both sides by 4 because a 4 is attached to the x. This shows that it's multiplied by x. The opposite of multiplication is division, which is why we divided each number by the number attached to x, which is 4. Now that we have divided 4x equals 10 by 4 on each side of the equal sign, we have isolated our x. This means that we can now bring our x below. Now what we will do is divide 10 by 4. This equals 2.5. Since x is isolated by itself and we have a number on the other side of the equal sign, this expression is balanced. What is the distributive property?
The distributive property lets you multiply a sum by multiplying each add-in separately and then the products. What does this mean? When we have a problem like this, we're going to take the number on the outside of the parentheses and distribute it to the x and the 2. So it's going to hop to the x first and then the 2 to multiply. So then we will have 5x plus 10, because remember we multiplied 5 times 2 to get the 10. I know this might not look like a complete answer, but since there is not an equal sign in this answer, we cannot do any more to it. So 5x plus 10 will be our final answer. Now that we have simplified our expression, we can take a look back and see why we did these steps. Since the 5 is attached to the parentheses, we know that we need to distribute the 5 to every number or variable inside of the parentheses.
Now it's time for our last story problem. Since we just learned about the distributive property, we're going to use this property to solve this problem. The animal shelter has 3 different types of dogs: Pit Bull, German Shepherd, and Shih Tzu. There are 5 times as many Pit Bulls as there are German Shepherds, and there are 7 times as many Shih Tzus as there are German Shepherds. Let X represent the number of German Shepherds. Simplify the expression given to find the total number of dogs in the shelter. I know this expression looks confusing, so a helpful hint is to remember that anything on the inside of the parentheses multiplies with anything on the outside. Now let's take 5 to solve the problem with your partner. If you have any questions, again, feel free to ask your partner or your teacher for help. You can do it.
This problem might look a little different than the first problem we did, but it's sort of the same thing. So the x in this problem represents the number of German Shepherds, and the 1, 5, and 7 represent the other numbers of the dogs. So first we're going to jump the x to the 1 to distribute that, and then to the 5, and then to the 7. So after that we will have 1x plus 5x plus 7x. Since all of the numbers in this problem share the same variable, all we need to do is add the numbers. So 1 plus 5 plus 7 is 13. So our answer will be 13x.
Now it's time to have some fun and apply our knowledge about properties that we use to solve equivalent expressions. Your teacher will pull up a link that will take you to a fun battleship game where we will use these properties to win battleship against our partner.